everybody, and welcome back to OMB Reviews. I am the critic who is a cynic. Hope we're doing well, and today we're doing a box office breakdown for this past weekend, as we had several new releases, a couple of which received pretty wide theatrical release, going to thousands of theaters across the United States and also in certain parts of the world, and also one or two that have already actually been released previously but are seeing re-releases because obviously during this time of continued pandemic and limited theater space and people in general not really feeling fully comfortable yet, at least across the country, to go back to theaters, they're trying to entice people with anniversaries, like for instance Top Gun coming back to theaters and other films that have come out the last few years, to get them re-released to try and entice some people to come back. And of course, the success of not only these re-releases, but most importantly of the new releases, is going to determine whether or not studios feel comfortable enough to be able to continue in their release structure, and whether or not certain films get pushed back even further than what they have been before, because obviously there are a lot of huge big budget films that have been pushed back because the studios obviously see the writing on the wall, which is that if people aren't going to the movies, they're not going to be able to recoup their investments, even though the vast majority of them were kind of having issues with that even at the very beginnings of everything that went on with COVID. But let's talk about this past weekend's numbers. So coming in at number one this weekend was the new movie Spiral. So this is set in the Saw universe, and it stars Chris Rock and Samuel L. Jackson. And from what I've heard, it is actually a pretty good addition to the Saw universe. With all that being said, it came out around 2,800 screens, so not the vast majority of screens as far as like other big releases typically would get, but still a respectable amount, especially for a more horror-esque film. It seems to be pretty common for that. Wrath of Man was now in its second week. This is the one with Jason Statham, and so it had a pretty respectable 55% drop from last week, and pretty standard for that. It also added 132 screens and made another $3.7 million. And another new release, Those Who Wish Me Dead, which is also available on HBO Max. So once again, we see that there is a big struggle with these HBO Max subscription movies that are getting released in theaters at the same time, and there's a question of how much is the HBO Max release cutting into the actual box office numbers. And at this point, it really is not very easy to really track down exactly what kind of impact that would actually be. But that opened up to a measly $2.8 million, coming out at over 3,000 theaters. I've actually been able to see Those Who Wish Me Dead, and so do expect a review at some point in the future. But as I've mentioned previously, I have a lot of movies that I still need to review. In general, though, I thought the film was okay. It was mostly forgettable, and it's really sad because Taylor Sheridan did the writing and direction, or at least co-wrote the film and directed it. He's also the person who did films like Hell or High Water. He's also someone that was involved with the Sicario movies. So again, I have genuinely liked most of the projects he did. And the only reason why I even decided to watch it, because I'm not a big Angelina Jolie fan, is because of him. And so I was actually disappointed because for his work, it was very poor. As a movie, it was okay. Really, the fire effects, in my opinion, were just really not very good. But that came out at over 3,000 theaters. Seeing the rest of the films that, came out and have continued to come out week after week, and where they stand as far as the rankings go, Demon Slayer continues to make a lot of money, now starting to leave various theaters, but still making another $1.8 million here in the States. Again, $42 million total domestically. That is a pretty good amount to see for an anime film like that, which, of course, as I mentioned before, did crazy numbers in Japan. So the fact that it's continuing to make money across the world, no matter what market it's in, is a pretty good thing. Raya and the Last Dragon got $1.7 million, coming in at number 5, and this is a film that continues to bleed money and has been a massive financial loss. Again, for Disney, Disney has not really had a financial hit at this point over the last year during the entire time of the pandemic. In fact, it's lost tons of money on a lot of the releases that it's had, mostly because, of course, a lot of them cost a lot of money. No one's gone to see them. And also because they decided to release some of their movies on their Disney Plus streaming service, either for free or for a crazy $30 premium that, again, we don't really have the official numbers on, and I doubt that a lot of people, at least enough to make up for the financial loss of the box office, to make up in any real way. But again, that is just complete speculation on my part. Godzilla vs. Kong, I know there's a lot of people who watch my videos who are diehard fans of this, and again, I'm just not one of them. Really, for the next two films, I thought Godzilla vs. Kong was it wasn't very good. It was a C-level movie, and I'm glad that people enjoyed it for what it was. This film, though, has only made another $1.5 million, so people, again, have been saying for a while, oh, it's going to reach $100 million. It's still very well possible. It's only about $5 million, less than $5 million away from doing that, and if it keeps making $1 million every single week, could totally happen in the next 5 weeks or so. But as you can see, it is losing not just money week to week still, but it's also starting to lose theaters. And as more and more movies come out, it's more and more competition, which means less money available. So it is still very much possible for that film, but it has really slowed down tremendously worldwide to the point where it's starting to be a question of whether or not it's going to cross that profitability line based off of the numbers that have been presented so far. At least just looking at the box office and not considering anything else, and that's something that I always try, hopefully, to make as clear as I possibly can. Mortal Kombat continues to drop another 45%, also dropping over 500 screens in its 4th week. And again, I think that when you look to other films that have been out for a longer period of time, having more screens available or dropping less screens in general, seeing less drops even, weeks and weeks later, it really just, I think, shows you and hopefully makes the point as to why I've been saying that films like Mortal Kombat likely will not actually break even just based off of the actual box office numbers. And once again, this is still, of course, waiting for the film to be released in certain markets, which could make a difference. But at this point, it's a pretty dismal opening, at least domestically, and also just in general with only $39 million or so. Also, a couple other new movies that came out, Finding You, which I don't really know much about, and then the movie Profile, which I was going to do a breakdown on. I actually put it up into the document, the Excel document that I use in order to break down these numbers, only to discover the film technically came out in 2018 and has found a re-release of some sorts, and it's very confusing. And so because it only made $730,000 anyway, I decided just to not go into any further detail about it. But let's go ahead and look at some of these movies. So as I mentioned before, Spiral, which came out, that is the film based in the Saw universe. This one has made $12 million worldwide, which really isn't all that much when everything is said and done. But this is also a movie where we don't know officially the budget for it, and so it could actually be on the way to profitability. I would guess that this film was probably low budget, but again, that's just mostly speculation on my part based off of previous films, based off of what, again, the look and feel of the movie seems to be. It seems like this would be probably more on the low budget end of things, especially within the Saw universe. But again, that has not really been officially released as far as that I can see. Same thing with Wrath of Man, still trying to find this. So if you can find those those numbers for me, if you can find any article that even mentions their production budgets, that would be awesome. Please let me know in the pinned comment below. I've been still trying to find, even for Wrath of Man, trying to find its numbers too. But again, it is what it is. This one's now up to $45.3 million. So if this is a lower budget film like I think it is, then that could very well spell some pretty good success for them. However, of course, just like with other films, biggest chunk of the money is coming from China, which they get the very smallest amount back in, but they also have done really well in Russia and other parts of the world, and so they won't nearly be as hard hit as some of the other films that I have mentioned previously. And then Those That Wish Me Dead, again, only $7.2 million worldwide, which is really not all that great. And based off of the numbers from the projected budget, this film has a little ways to go. And based off of the opening weekend numbers, I doubt that this film is going to make a lot of money. This wasn't the biggest budget film release in the world, but again, these are the kinds of movies where even though it costs a little bit, you still need to make enough back in order to actually break even at the box office. Let me go ahead now and go to the box office tracking, though. You can find at my website, ombreviews.home.blog, and summer's almost upon us, and so my hope is that we'll be able to finally actually get some get an actual official website going on. And so my bad. So actually we do have a production budget for Spiral. So $20 million. So as I said, it was on the lower end of what likely the cost would be. So Spiral making $12 million, costing around $20 million worldwide. So it was Those Who Wish Me Dead and Wrath of Man, of which I cannot find production budgets for. So if you can find those, that'd be awesome. But again, when we look to Spiral, $20 million, that means with marketing, probably cost around $30 million or so. Making $12 million means that it's right now negative $22.7 million in the red. But again, pretty strong opening weekend for a lower budget movie. So this is a film that is definitely has a chance to definitely break even, make some profit. But obviously, I think that they were hoping that this film would have done just a little bit better, seeing that it has that horror element to it. And there's obviously a very large group, large fan base of the Saw films, of the Saw universe, of horror films in general, that isn't really coming out in the way that they would potentially have shown up for other films, or at the very least at this time of the year. Part of me kind of wonders if this was a movie that probably actually could have done better to be released and delayed until October, because that is a very good time of the year for films like it to get released. But again, we'll know more so by the second weekend whether or not the film will actually be able to reach any sense of profitability or not, and we'll have to wait and see on that. As I said before, this other film that came out, Those Who Wish Me Dead, made $7.1 million, and the movie Wrath of Man with $45 million. And I would be able to make some projections as far as profitability for this movie, but because I don't have a production budget, I cannot do so. What I can say, though, is that based off of this second week total, what likely will happen is that the film will end up somewhere between $64.8 and $90 million worldwide is my best guess. Now, remember that when it comes to these projections, there's a lot of things that can impact these projections, such as delayed releases in various countries, abnormally long legs for a movie, like just films that they don't start off very strong, but they continue to make money, even if it's just a little bit, week after week after week, and they're able to essentially overperform in a lot of ways. We saw that happen just the other year, actually 2 years or so ago at this point, with Knives Out. It was a film that made $70 million, $99 million by the by its second week, and so my projection was that it was going to make at most $199 million, and the film ended up making around $306 million, and so that was definitely an abnormality. But that's also a movie that again had crazy legs and did really well in really odd countries. It didn't really make a whole lot of sense when you really broke that one down. But anyway, these are the numbers, and as I said before, we're talking about movies like Mortal Kombat and movies like Godzilla vs. Kong. When you have Mortal Kombat still at negative $36 million, and so this is a film that, based on projections, probably won't reach profitability. If it overperforms in Japan and other markets, though, obviously it could still make that back. I wouldn't really hold my breath on that, because I don't think the film is very good. I don't think it's been very well received universally, so we'll have to wait and see on that. And then with the commentary on Godzilla vs. Kong, it is slowed down so much, it's still negative $40 million or so, based on the numbers that we have here, and I still have it projected to make some profit, but it's slowing down so much, and also this is not taking into account the very small amount it gets back from China, that this movie actually potentially is closer to negative $100 million when you take out the fact that only about 25% of the China number actually goes to them. And remember, the vast majority, almost half of the money that Godzilla vs. Kong has made has come directly from China. But again, still a movie that could have made money elsewhere, and maybe it would be enough to break even, but based on just the box office, does not seem to be the case. But what are your thoughts about this? Are you excited to see any of these new movies? So have you seen Spiral, or Those That Wish Me Dead, or Wrath of Man? Let me know in the comment section below. And I know that there was a couple of other movies that also came out this week. Again, I think there was some horror film that came out and it didn't show up. It didn't get posted right away. So again, I don't really have that listed to be able to get any real commentary on it, because I was expecting it to be listed here. I think it was called, like, it was the new Zack Snyder zombie movie or something like that, and it just didn't really show up in these top the top movies. And so again, there's all these other new releases, and sometimes there's movies that just don't really get reported for one reason or another, and so I'm guessing that that's what happened, or it's getting a very slow release could also be part of the discussion as well. But let me know your thoughts about any of this stuff in the comment section below. If you like this video, smash that like button, light up the fire button if you're watching over on Odyssey. It really does mean a lot. By the way, tomorrow, Tuesday, May 18th, we'll be having our one-man low council stream, and it'll also be the 3-year celebration of the founding of the channel. I was looking back on my old videos and realized that we're right about at the time, in fact, maybe even a little past the first videos that I ever did on YouTube, even before I had the Critic Who Was a Cynic tagline, and when I was just starting to get cameras and, my camera set up and trying to get the right microphone. And so it was really fun just to watch those back. And I think tomorrow will probably maybe watch some of those early videos or even those early streams, because it's almost been a year, or rather, sorry, it's almost been 3 years since I first started streaming as well. And if you don't know that, typically most of the content I make nowadays are the streams that I do Tuesdays and Saturdays at 7 p.m. Eastern time. And I do that on YouTube, Odyssey, DLive, and also on Periscope. So if you've never known that before, check out those live streams. We talk about a lot of stuff, and a lot of times it's open movie talk discussion of anything that you want to know or hear my thoughts on. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. You guys are amazing and beautiful people. I hope you all have a wonderful day. And as always, God bless. And now for a huge shout out to all of my Patreon and Subscribe Star members for the month of May. Ali C83, Andrew Hoyle, Biffer the Hobbit, Brian P, Dion, Divex, Enrique Evangelista, Father Christopher Miller, hail to you, Father. Father Damian Cook, Garrett Searles, Inflamed Wood, It's a Trap Productions, Jason Clark, Jacob Juice, Jeffrey Toone, Jonathan Carney, Laura the Modern Major General's Story, Mad Mitch Dunaway, Mike Jackson, Mr. Peabody and his evil twin with the beautiful hair, On to June, Orange Chat Reviews, Out of Step with Reality, Priscilla Hall, Riff Magos, Rosetta Odin, Steve Glasker, Miss Martin Muses, Theodore Bendon, Tina Bojan, and Tina B. Thank you all very much for being my Patreon members this month. I really always appreciate you. And to my Subscribe Star members, Fast Reaction, Nosferatu Gatsu, Stand For, John B., Perpetual Punster, Mr. Roy, Glinzer, J. Alex McCarthy Jr., Dean Heiss, the new number 2, J-Rod, the Beer Guru, Nevadanji Adams, and ZK Man. Thank you very much for supporting me on Subscribe Star. And if you want your name shouted out at the end of every video and live stream, please consider joining on Patreon or Subscribe Star. And if you join at some of the higher levels, you get access to things like giveaways, where every month I do giveaways of 4K titles, steelbooks, and Blu-rays. And again, more information can be found over on Patreon and Subscribe Star. And at the higher levels, you also get access to an exclusive bi-monthly podcast. Depending on our schedules, we at least get one long podcast out. We try and get 2 podcasts out as often as we possibly can every single month with John the Flick Pick Flickinger. So again, check out more information. And if you are at the Chosen of Valhalla level, which is the highest level available, you not only get all of those things, you also get in your first month a free t-shirt and also access to the Chosen of Valhalla live stream, where I have my Chosen on a stream talking, asking questions, answering questions, talking about movies and anything that they want to talk about. So if all that stuff sounds like fun to you, check out those links below and support the channel in whatever way you can. I do appreciate you, whether you are a member, whether you are a supporter on Patreon, Subscribe Star, or whether you are simply supportive in general, leaving comments and likes. I really greatly appreciate it. You guys are all amazing, beautiful people. Have a wonderful day. And as always, God bless.